Another big weekend now in the history books behind us on the schedule as a couple of series getting things underway here in 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rob Howden, joined as always by David Cole. This is another EKN Debrief, episode number 21. David and I sitting down here on April the 11th to go over the United States Pro Kart Series opener at Ocala Grand Prix. The Southern Grand Prix was the name of the event, and this episode of the Debrief, it's being presented by K1 Race Gear. Since 2003, K1 Race Gear has been a one-stop shop for all your indoor and outdoor karting needs. From racing shoes, suits, driving gloves, to chest protectors, rib vests, accessories, and bags, K1 Race Gear provides quality karting products for the enthusiast and the professional alike. Visit K1RaceGear.com today and get everything you need for your next racing outing. Once again, jumping into another debrief, number 21. Man, we've knocked a bunch of these out, and in fact, David Cole, we've already knocked a bunch of them out this year. We continue to rock and roll through our particular EKN Trackside Live schedule. What is this? Race number 7, I think, for us this year?
Well, I believe this was my 5th one, so yeah, it's 7 overall because you count the 2 you went to without me. We're looking at 7 races.
I like it. You know what? I'll give it up to you. You got a chance to get out of the cold that is still embracing the northern climes of both the U.S. and Canada. Man, it's still cold up here, but you were able to head south for the start of the USPKS series. Again, Ocala Grand Prix, nice weather for the most part in Ocala, Florida.
Well, warm was the main concern. Like, who cares if it rained? Because luckily for us, it rained Saturday night. So, big storm came blowing through. Luckily, we got everything in. We did have a brief, 1-minute shower during one of the mini heat races on Saturday, but it just gave us a 15-minute delay, and the track was dry by the end of that. So it was maybe a couple sketchy laps for the first class out on track, but everybody was on slick tires, so they were all on the same page. But weather-wise, it was great to get to start sweating again.
Right. I know it's been pretty cold up here. Of course, myself in Ontario, you in Michigan. And the cold's still gripping. It's not like it's stopping at all. And in fact, up here, I know in Ontario, there's a lot of guys that would have been out driving by now. It's April the 11th. It's still just above freezing here. I know all the years I raced, I was usually on track April 1st, April 2nd. That was kind of the time that we figured we'd get on track to do our first practice sessions. I'm sure you're pretty much the same in Michigan, but yeah, chance for you to get to Florida, get some warm temperature, get comfortable with that. Of course, we're heading to Phoenix this coming weekend for the Challenge of the Americas finale, so more warm weather for us there as well. David, how about your thoughts on Ocala Grand Prix? It's been a while since you attended an event down there.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I think it was 2009, the Stars of Karting program. When we were down there. That was, I think, my one and only visit there. I'm trying to think of another time that I was there, but I think that was it because I haven't done any of the Florida Winter Tour stuff or now any of the Winter Series programs with SCUSA. So Florida is not exactly a destination I go to a lot except for Daytona every year.
Well, with the Briggs and Stratton program as part of the SCUSA Winter Series, we might have to drag you down there next year to do a little driving. Maybe that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, it just conflicts with basketball up here. Basketball's a big, important deal up here. So
with the family,
it's tough. But it was good to go back to Ocala. It's just kind of one of those hidden gems that's just sitting alongside the highway. Yep. It's a big facility for our sport. It's just not as recognized as say like a GoPro or a Newcastle because of the amenities there. But Ocala is for what they have, it's probably one of the best hidden gems that we have in the sport. And it was actually one of the first times that the series has visited Ocala. So this is their first trek anywhere south of North Carolina because North Carolina was it for USPKS during the first 5 years. So this was their first trip south. They've talked about it for years, but this time they pulled the trigger, and I think it worked out pretty well.
This is episode number 21 of the EKN Debrief. David Cole and I are going to kind of do the breakdown of the USPKS opener at Ocala Grand Prix. And David, speak to that. It's a very key point that this was the first time that the USPKS has gone south, as you said. And obviously the schedule came out, a shorter schedule, which made it a little bit easier for people to run the entire program. What were the thoughts of people you talked to that, are core supporters of the series to get down to Ocala here in at this date, early April?
I think, kind of like we talked about with the weather, it was just a nice break for people to get away from all the coldness. When every year we had gone to GoPro in April, it pretty much rained every weekend, and it wasn't exactly warm weather that you wanted to escape to. So I think this was a kind of a win-win, with the IME program, with the series being all IME now, and the IME program growing within the state of Florida and throughout the South. I think this definitely has the opportunity to be, maybe a mainstay opening location for the series.
Well, when you think about the different people and different groups of people that run different series, right? Because Florida now has a SCUSA Winter Series. It's got what's essentially the Rock Cup Florida Winter Tour now. So you have your Rock drivers, you've got your SCUSA Pro Tour guys in Florida and whatever it may be. But you've got your core group of drivers who race the USPKS, and they also race the Route 66 Sprint Series, which is more of a regional series up in the Great Lakes area. It kind of gives those drivers who wouldn't go to Rock Cup, wouldn't potentially go to the SCUSA Winter Series, it gives them that time to get away and to get out of the cold and down to Florida.
That's exactly it, Rob. But on the flip side, like you said, there was the winter programs all throughout Florida. So I think it kind of limited the number of actual Florida drivers from showing up because they had gone through 6 to 10 events already this season. So there was definitely a number of factors onto why people were there and a number of factors as to why people weren't there. But overall, when you look at the broad picture, it was definitely an improvement from their last event in Audubon, which barely drew 60 carts, and to get 113 and to see the KA program, developing to where it is now, it's in the positive direction. That's for sure.
You're going to talk more about the event, some of the cool stuff that happened about the event and just kind of the setup for the event when we get into the Paddock Pass section. That'll be after our first commercial break. But give us a rundown. You said 113 entries. I've got some notes that you provided with me here. I'm looking at them as well. A really good cross section. Not a lot of classes in this particular program. Only 7 categories on the USPKS to maximize track time. Give us a look at the numbers that you saw. And again, as you said, 113 entries to get the season started.
Yeah, I think where they hurt in the was the junior category, the lowest category. We had 11, so at least every category of the 7 were above 10, and that's something so you're at least averaging double digits. So you definitely want to do that when you're hosting a race. But the X30 Junior was a little bit low in turnout due to the fact of other events going on that weekend and obviously before and after. So I think that class limited. X30 Pro was at 21, which was a great improvement from what we saw at the end of last year. The class used to get an average of 30 every weekend. So to see it go back up to 21 is a good sign. We'll see where it ends up in the last 2 events of the year. I'm guessing it'll stick around the 20 marker. The good thing was the KA. We showed 17 in the senior, but it was really the KA junior class which made its debut in the series, which started at 14, and a number of them were actually from North Carolina. So I think that category, as more clubs and tracks begin to introduce the KA engine format, we'll be able to start seeing these numbers grow at the USPKS program, because obviously it's better to feed from the bottom up than from the top down. Especially at this grassroots engine package that we have.
Hey, what are your thoughts on the X30 Masters category getting back there?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about who was in there, but I mean, it was guys from California, guys from the upper Northeast. So the guys from all over the country really came down and supported the program. It's other than the SCUSA Pro Tour, this is it. There's no other IME Masters program going on at a big event or big major series like this other than that. So it was good. And it was one of the more competitive classes that we had throughout the weekend. So it was great to see. I think it's just obviously it was a matter of time that the Masters class would start to get a rebirth a regrowth with numbers, because we're starting to see a lot of drivers reaching that master's age limit. So
it kind of feeds itself, right? Every year, another group of drivers hit 30, 31, 32, and they're ready to jump into the Masters class. Well, David gave us kind of a breakdown there of the class structure and the numbers that they were able to draw to the opening round of the USPKS series at Ocala Grand Prix. After this break, David will come back and give us a better look inside the paddock to find out actually what was happening, what the talk was all about, and we'll let him do that after this break.
If clean racing, fair competition, and tons of fun is what you're looking for in a racing program, then look no further than the United States Pro Kart Series. MG Tires, IAME USA East, and Nitro Kart have all teamed up to present the 6th edition of the USPKS, and it just keeps on getting better. USPKS has forged a path in the U.S. by being the first major series to incorporate the pushback bumper system, setting a new standard in karting safety and competition. Our top-rated tech team has partnered with MG, IAME, and VP Fuels to ensure our competitors are competing on a fair platform. With a renewed focus on value, the 2018 version of the USPKS will take its racers to top karting venues like Ocala Grand Prix, GoPro Motorplex, and Newcastle Motorsports Park. Maximizing track time and fun is what the US Pro Kart Series is all about. If you'd like to join the party, check out our website at uspks.com or look us up on Facebook at USPKS.
From coast to coast, IAME has become the two-cycle engine of choice for American karting. Starting with the air-cooled 60cc Swift engine and moving through to the incredible X30 power plant, IAME is providing much-needed stability for the sport. The Swift and X30 engines are the backbone of the SuperKarts USA Pro Tour and Pro Kart Challenge Series, as well as the USPKS, the Route 66 Sprint Series, and the WKA Manufacturers Cup. We're thrilled to introduce the new IAME KA100 Rejet engine with a special introductory price of just $16.95 until the end of February. The new engine is getting rave reviews and will be part of the USPKS, Route 66, and WKA Man Cup programs in 2018. Watch for more regions of the country to get on board with this new formula. We have 2 distribution centers in the U.S. to serve you well. IAME East in Mooresville, North Carolina, and IAME West in Temecula, California. The momentum is continuing to build, so it's time to make an investment in stabilizing your engine program. For more information on IAME, head to the website for your region, IAMEUSAEast.com or IAMEUSAWest.com. Welcome back, EKN listeners, to episode number 21 of the Debrief. David Cole and I breaking down the opening round, the Southern Grand Prix, first round of the United States Pro Kart Series. That event held at the Ocala Grand Prix circuit in Central Florida. Again, David Cole alongside Rob Howden. The Paddock Pass now up, presented this particular episode by Atlanta Motorsports Park, who, by the way, are looking for a full-time kart tuner to head up their program. Any tuners out there maybe listening in, maybe interested in this opportunity, you should head to atlantamotorsports.com/kart-tuners. Pretty good gig, David, for the right person. An amazing facility. I'm actually working on an article right now for Atlanta Motorsports Park. They're putting in the full clubhouse, the shop. They're spending money on that place, and it's going to be a really badass racetrack when it's all said and done.
Well, again, it's like you said, it's kind of going to be a club facility. It's not one I don't think that we'll be able to go to with a big program, but it's a great grassroots operation that will be able to help build the sport a little bit more with new racers. People who are interested in racing can go there for the big track and wander over to the kart track. So it's a great facility to have going on. And actually the WKA National Road Race Series is going to be there at the beginning of May on the big track. So
nice.
It's definitely one of the facilities that we have in the country that's supporting karting big time.
So, David, let's jump into the Paddock Pass again, brought to you by Atlanta Motorsports Park. Give us the thought. What was going on in the paddock? What were some of the cool stuff that you saw on the racetrack? And this really isn't race report stuff. The Paddock Pass kind of giving the stuff that you heard, kind of what happened and what you were able to pick up being trackside.
Well, to begin with, it was the sixth season. It's the start of the sixth season for the USPKS program. And the one thing that Mark Coates is really done is make sure he has the right people in the right place. And that's something he's done from event to event, making sure he has the right head flagman. We had 4 sets of eyes plus a head flagman watching the track. So with 4 basically race directors, and then a head flagman, that's 5 sets of eyes watching the race. So I don't think there were there weren't too many complaints about no calls or this or nothing being done about certain things or anything going on the racetrack. But the one thing that kind of in turn limits that is the pushback bumper. This being the second season for them implementing the pushback bumper. The only change to that program was instead of doing a time loss for penalties, whether it be 5 seconds or 10 seconds, they moved it to be a position loss, where with it being 2 or 4 positions that they're going to lose.
What was the feedback on that?
Well, again, we'll get into that a little bit more later. But again, you have it. You have guys that are like, oh, this, the racing out here is a lot cleaner. There's not a lot of guys making stupid moves, et cetera, et cetera. And then on the flip side, you're like, well, my bumper didn't push in because I rammed somebody, blah, blah, blah. And so you have, again, like we've talked about over and over again, this isn't a perfect system. It has its flaws. It has its minuses. It has its pluses. It's not going to be the best system out there. The one thing it does, the starts that we saw throughout the weekend were fairly clean, with the exception of 1 or 2 out of maybe 25 different starts that we have. So, it's a good percentage there. But again, and there weren't too many guys making those huge dive bombs from 5 carts back, trying to pass a guy without even a chance at it. You're still going to have contact out there. So again, I think it had its pluses and it had its minuses.
Well, you're going to see that, and you're right, David. I think that's key. With that system, you're going to get cleaner racing, and you're going to get guys that are going to get penalized because they didn't even do anything. It's whether it's just a chain reaction or whether it's somebody locking the brakes up early or whatever it may be. There's going to be guys that get penalized who probably didn't deserve it, but that's the system. And the reason why the system is here is because the racecraft is gone, right? Because people are driving like idiots. We got to bring the system in. This is the fallout. It's just collateral damage.
That's exactly it. And the other thing it brings in, especially at the Ocala circuit, is a lot of defensive driving. It's been a while since I was at Ocala, but I think you saw it too during the SCUSA Winter Series program. There was a lot of defensive driving going down the front straightaway there, and in different parts of the track as well, just because of the back and forth type flow that the track has with the way the corners are laid out. That if you don't give an inch, they're not going to be able to take it, especially with the pushback bumper system. But in return, when you go down the straightaway and you get a good run out of that big bending 180 corner, that just, the big sweeper, the guys just boom, automatically drop to the bottom of the racetrack or run that stupid blend line where they go from the outside to the inside that they're blocking, but it's hard because it's their one move that they can make. So it's a tough situation at that facility. So it's kind of both the pushback bumper system and the track.
Yeah, it's one of those racetracks just based on the layout that you can essentially run a complete defensive line all the way around, and it makes it very tough for the driver to go around the outside of you. Going through the hairpins, 4 or 5, 6 over to 7. All you have to do is, if you just keep running the inside line, you're gonna ruin your exit. But it's tough for someone to get by you because the straightaways aren't long enough after you've made that block move. So you're right, and the big run down the front straightaway drives me absolutely nuts. They come out of that the sweeper nice and wide, drive right across start finish line, drive it all the way back, looking over their shoulder the whole time, driving it all the way back to the bottom. And again, it's one of those deals where with the pushback now, you've really taken it away from the driver to say, hey, you can't do that to me. You do it to me four laps in a row, I'm going to send you at the end of the straightaway. You can't even do that because if you do that, you get the penalty. So it's tough. It's really tough. Let's spin more onto the positives and talk about the return of the Masters class. You and I are big supporters of Masters, whether it's 206 or KA or Tag X30 or Rock or Shift or whatever it is. We love seeing guys 30 and up, 45 and up get out there and having fun. Well,
if you kind of look at the demographics of karting right now, it's more oriented towards the kids who are 17 and younger, and basically guys who are 30 and up. That is our demographic right now that hits. I mean, we have people between the ages of 18 and 30 that want to race, but a lot of them either A, can't afford it, or B, just don't have the time to be able to do it, or C, they work in the industry and don't drive.
Yeah.
So I think, as we talked about before, the drivers that are reaching that 30 years of age, and a lot of it is just guys who are looking at karting as a better alternative to motorsports, rather than spending the thousands and thousands of dollars they do on a car race for, the 30-minute race they get to do. They get to go to a karting track and be on track for an hour on Friday and an hour on Saturday and an hour on Sunday and be competitive right from the get-go, or at least have somebody to race with all the time. So, the Masters class, there's a lot of guys throughout the country that just want to go and race, and it's great to see the USPKS program bring it back. And one of the drivers we saw, on the weekend returning, which, we're shocked to see in the Masters class, but I guess, he is of age now, is Scott Speed, a former national champion, a former Formula One driver, a former NASCAR driver, now 3-time global rallycross champion, coming in and racing with his dad and brother's race team.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's Scott Speed being Masters age. I don't think I've ever felt as old, to a certain extent. Actually, it's almost worse even that when Nick Tucker, who was a junior driver back in the SCUSA days, in the first start of the Pro Moto Tour, he became Masters age. Even like Scott was 16 years old when we launched the Shifter Card Illustrated magazine, and SCUSA launched their Pro Moto Tour. And now here he is with an amazing resume, but now running in the Masters classes. That'll definitely make you feel it a little bit.
Well, and the one thing I didn't have a chance to speak with him because he was obviously a little busy. He was helping out, with some. Now I don't know necessarily driver coaching, because he'll always say Alex is a better coach or driver than he was, but he was busy with talking with people and taking photos and being a polite professional driver. But I'm wondering if this could be a lead up into maybe something in November that we might see happen again.
Well, you know what? I love seeing him get into the Masters class, because we've seen so many guys want to come back and run it in the pro class, whatever it may be, but it's just tough. They don't have any seat time. And how many awesome guys have we saw run in the Masters category at the Super Nationals? Even Will Power, your Verizon IndyCar Series champion at one point, ran in X30 Masters or Tag Masters, and I like that.
Well,
right? I like that.
One of the latest that we thought we'd never see was Phil Giebler.
True, yeah.
Again, Phil Giebler was one of those guys that was running factory Tony Kart back when the magazine started. I think So, to see these guys now in Masters, it's pretty cool.
Going to the other end of the spectrum, I know that you were happy to see a really good turnout in the KA 100 junior category. I think that's big for the series.
Yeah, kind of like what I said earlier, half of those drivers that made up the 14 that were there were from the GoPro Motorplex Club racing series there. So I think as the engine starts to hit the club levels, I think we'll be able to see this category grow a little bit more. We already see, a number of Yamaha junior drivers at the WK Man Cup series, which is probably one of the most competitive and fun classes to watch. This one had a lot of kids that, aren't quite at the level to race X30. So they raced KA 100. We didn't see any drivers racing both. I believe one tried to, but he just focused on KA 100. And so it was, so it wasn't a big, there weren't any crossover or double duty drivers, I should say, doing it. So it's almost kind of, if you want to look at it, it was almost like the semi-pro class. But you don't want to necessarily say that because, it's a different element racing the K100 compared to the X30. It was still good to see.
You're feeling, David, that there'll be more momentum with that category moving to the next race?
Well, I think especially going to GoPro next for the series, the numbers should probably increase. And then when we go to Newcastle, now that Route 66, I believe, is running the junior class as well, maybe we'll see an increase in numbers when we go to Newcastle for the finale. So it definitely has the opportunity to increase. And I think in turn, it's kind of taking entries away from the X30. But again, we have a number of drivers in the X30 category throughout the eastern half of the country. So I think it's great to have the opportunity to have both. And if we continue to see not a lot of drivers doing both, I think that shows the growth of the junior age category that we have right now.
It also shows that there was indeed a need for the KA100. Right, that a little more affordable, a little less power. If there's that, you said there was 14 guys who decided to run that category instead of X30 Junior. That we always say that somebody brings a class in, and we use the term, "Well, that's the answer to a question no one's ever asked." That one, obviously, with the support it's been getting, that's a question that's a spot that needed a demographic that needed to get serviced by an engine that was perfect, and apparently the KA100 has really been supported well.
Well, yeah, and that's obviously that's been the discussion for the last 2 years now that we've talked about this engine compared to the Yamaha. It's something we can talk about a little bit more later, but it's a bit easier when you look at it maintenance wise and tuning wise. The K is a lot easier to do than the Yamaha, and also the perception of having to have the perfect motor. We don't have that right now with the KA100 because they're all running out right out of the box. You can't exactly do that with a Yamaha.
All right, Dave, let's talk about the numbers a little bit. 113 entries total over the 7 categories. Tough because obviously the Gear Up F Series, which is a great series up in the Northeast, they had their first race of the year on the same weekend out at Kershaw. Tough to see that, to have those two events essentially probably draw from each other.
Yeah, they did. It limited some of the regional guys from attending a USPKS program, but in turn, some of the guys that we see on the national scene in the minis and in the juniors categories and even senior go to the F Series and race there rather than racing at the USPKS program. So, it's great to see that we had what I think we said over almost 250 carters from the 2 events. So It's good to see that in terms of numbers. But, I would like, it'd be a lot better if programs like these worked together and didn't schedule right on top of each other.
Interesting that when you look at actually the numbers from both programs, USPKS 113 drivers spread over 7 classes, F Series right around 100, I think about 130 when it was all said and done over their 7 classes, or 8 classes rather. So both series averaging about 16.1, 16.2 drivers per category. So essentially the same turnout from both programs. And as you said, about 250 drivers on track racing, whether it be in Florida or in South Carolina.
Yeah, no, I guess it shows good numbers, but in all big picture, I would much rather see these programs all working together because we see USPKS making sure they're not on top of WK or SCUSA and stuff like that, and I'm not quite sure what happened between Gear Up and USPKS to make this happen, but it did, and Yeah, I guess it's just the nature of the beast that we have in karting.
True enough, there's only so many open weekends. All right, David, let's shut down the paddock pass here on the other side of this break, folks. David Cole is going to come back and give us the first segment of the race report from the USPKS opener at Ocala Grand Prix. Cometic Gasket is a leading worldwide supplier of gaskets and engine sealing solutions for karting, automotive performance, power sports, original equipment, and the remanufactured engine industries. Cometic karting gaskets are available as OE replacement top-end kits or as individual gaskets and seals. Just like competitive karters, Cometic can operate on the fly and has the unique capability to customize any gasket to meet specific engine requirements and clearances. All of Cometic's fiber materials are asbestos-free and do not require any additional sealants. Viton oil ring cylinder head seals are used in each 2-cycle kit, and Comedic's 4-cycle engine kits feature only the most advanced multi-layer steel head gaskets. Comedic can tailor to engine builder-specific needs through bulk ordering and packaging flexibility. Comedic gaskets are must-haves for championship-winning teams across multiple disciplines of both professional and amateur motorsports. Comedic gasket, sealing championships since 1989. In racing, you always want to be focused on improvement. Improving your driving, your braking, your lines, and your understanding of chassis dynamics. At the Rawls Performance Group, we specialize in driver development and providing a platform to maximize every opportunity for success. Our staff is made up of multi-time national champions, Super Nationals winners, and Team USA members. We're dedicated to your development, your constant improvement, and your success. Our goal is to help you raise your game and win races. It's what we do. We win. RPG can provide training and trackside support for many of the sport's biggest programs. In 2018, we will be running the SuperKart USA Pro Tour, Winter Series, the Super Nationals, and both the California Pro Kart Challenge and the Can-Am Karting Challenge. If you're looking forward to 2018 and you want to explode out of the gate to put in the best season of your life, call us to reserve a space under our tent for the inaugural SCUSA Winter Series. We'll be in Florida to win championships, and we'd love to have you with us. Welcome back to the EKN Radio Network. Rob Howden alongside David Cole. David quarterbacking this particular edition of the Debrief, episode number 21, as he breaks down the opening round of the United States Pro Kart Series at the Ocala Grand Prix, the Southern Grand Prix, the event. David, as we jump in here, I'll let you have at it. X30 Pro, as you said at the very top of the broadcast, it kind of return to the numbers that we've normally seen in the pro category.
Well, if I were to say we go to Ocala Grand Prix, who would you think would stand out? Would it be guys from New York or Illinois or Indiana? Who do you think would show up?
I'm just going to throw out the guys that maybe have raced for OGP and have a ton of track time on that track.
That pretty much was it in the two senior categories, especially in X30 Pro with, Austin Garrison, a former OGP driver who's got thousands of laps around that track, was a driver. Yeah. He was just basically the driver to beat all weekend. Swept Saturday, was just basically untouched, unchallenged throughout the day. Armin Kavkusik was able to be the second fastest driver on the racetrack and work his way up into second. Alex Bertinoli ran third. The next day, Garrison was again the driver to beat. The field was kept a little bit closer than they did on Saturday. Kavkusik actually got around him at the start of the final, wasn't able to keep it for more than a lap until Garrison retook the spot and then just kind of walked away from there. But that one little lap that he had behind Armin pushed the bumper back just a tad enough to cause a penalty. So Garrison actually crossed the line as the provisional winner, dominated the race, but because of the bumper being dislodged enough to warrant a 2-position penalty, that gave the victory over to Zach Hollingshead, another OGP driver and actually a senior rookie. So he was able to get a big victory for himself. The penalty actually to Garrison moved Brandon Jarzakrak up to second and dropped Garrison down to third. So it was a tough break. It was a tough break for Garrison.
That's the black and white of that pushback bumper, isn't it?
It is. And I talked to him afterwards, and part of the problem that they couldn't look at retracting the penalty was he had no GoPro on. And that was one of the things that when the pushback bumper system was introduced last year in the series, if you have GoPro footage and it determines that you did not make a improper move to cause the bumper to be pushed back, then the penalty will be taken away. Well, he is a driver who chooses not to run a GoPro on his kart. And, one of the things he talked about was, well, maybe they need to get, video marshaling for this series. And I said, I said, Austin, it's probably easier for you to get a $200 GoPro and put it on your kart, rather than for a series to spend $60,000, $70,000 on cameras and the whole system, and having 5 people put it together throughout the weekend and doing that. And so I hope I got across to him that point. And I hope other drivers understand that, because I think we're starting to see that more and more guys are putting on GoPros, not only to help them as a driver, in case they're trying to figure out where they can gain just that one extra little tenth, but to ensure that if a penalty is put on them, they have the proper evidence to retract that.
Agreed. No, I think you're bang on with that one, David. We are underway with the Race Report presented by Franklin Motorsports and Merlin USA. David giving us the rundown on X30 Pro. We've already talked, David, about X30 Masters and how great the racing was. Give us the details on it.
Well, the 2 guys to beat throughout the weekend, Jonathan Silva making the trek all the way from California, coming out to race with J3 aboard his comp cart, and then local driver Scott Roberts, who is I believe 2-time Team USA member. So a guy who's been able to have success in the Masters category for sure, and not only at home but throughout Florida and the Eastern Coast. Those 2 were basically going at it throughout Saturday and the weekend. Silva looked to have the advantage, but Roberts got him in both heat races. So they lined up 1-2 on the final grid. Unfortunately, they didn't quite make it through the first corner without bumping into each other and going off course.
Yeah, I was listening to that one. I was listening to the EKN live coverage of that, and I just kind of cringed. I'm like, oh no, guys, it's a long race. Let's not take each.
Yeah, I did.
Lap 1.
I didn't quite get to see it. With you've been in the booth, it's not exactly the best viewpoint for the start, and trying to do everything, I wasn't able to get down and see the start. So I didn't, and with the rain that night, I wasn't able to go and talk to them and see exactly what happened. But again, it was just kind of one of those racing incidents, and there wasn't any scuffle, there wasn't any middle fingers getting pointed at one another. So. They didn't drop the gloves. They kind of just sat there and watched the race in disgust, as they know they could have won, because out front it was actually Scott Speed who slid into the lead with their contact and went wire to wire for the victory. So it was the great thing about Scott's story is he didn't even practice Friday. He got there Friday, came with his wife and kids to see the family, I think, a little bit, and they kind of conned him into racing. So I think he was actually running with Alex's gear on, one of Tyler Gonzalez's spare carts, probably engines as well, and just went out there and was able to score victory in his first Masters race ever.
Nice. I like it. That sets up perfectly for the Super Nationals.
It does. And I think he probably would have had a chance to score a second victory, but on Sunday he elected not to race. He had pulled a muscle during a golf outing, I believe it was. So yeah. So his brother told him that as well, but I let it go, and so the main reason was he had a test in the car the next day. So definitely have to look at the day job before you go out and have fun in the cart.
Yeah, there are priorities when you're a professional race car driver. Yeah. I understand that.
But sure. Another great return was Scott Falcone, who hadn't been in the cart, I think he said, for maybe 2 years.
Wow.
Joined up with the Kart Sport North America program again, came out and was able to take the second place over Rob Mayer, another longtime Masters driver, I believe. It was a good Saturday. I know Silva and Roberts didn't quite end the way they wanted to, but there was the next day, which, again, didn't quite end up the way they wanted to, again, because Silva was the quickest kart on Sunday again. Roberts wasn't quite able to get him in the pre-final, so Silva took the lead. So they started 1-2 again, almost flip-flop positions. Silva was able to get the jump on him, and then within after the first lap, Silva just kind of lost the kart underneath him, spun, and Roberts had nowhere to go but run right into him.
Ouch.
So again, it was just, it wasn't quite the weekend that these two wanted, but I think they'll be able to bounce back when we go to GoPro.
Nice.
But
So who stepped up?
Yeah, I was kind of sitting there like, okay, well, who's going to be there? Laurentiu Mardan took the lead for a little bit, but it ended up being Todd Chambeau, driver from Georgia, who just got by around Mardan and just walked away with it and just didn't let anybody come near him the rest of the final, and was able to score victory for his first one in the series. Second place. Oh, so go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, interesting as well. I just look at some of the notes that Mardan was on a new chassis as well, running the Techno.
Yeah, Mardan came to the weekend not having any laps on the Techno. So it was a strange idea, starting out the new season on a new kart, and you've never run any laps before. So the weekend was kind of a progression for him. He kind of learning what the kart was going to do throughout Friday. The speed wasn't quite. He was kind of there Friday night. Friday at the end of practice, wasn't quite there Saturday, but Sunday obviously stepped up the game. Was able to finish second ahead of Danny Robertson, who was moved up to third after a number of bumper penalties for some drivers who were within the top five.
We'll see whether or not the bumper penalties from the pushback actually work with these guys, and we see some cleaner racing, at least in this category when we get to GoPro for the second event in the series. Yeah.
Well, I think those were more kind of like chain reactions.
Okay. All right.
And to be honest, I don't think, again, if a guy stomps on his brakes in front of you and you don't quite catch it in time, you're going to run into the back of him and it's going to get pushed in.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's, where the GoPro comes in. If you have the ability to show that, you had nowhere to go but hit them. It's not. What's the word I'm looking for? The penalty they always call when you're driving like an idiot.
Avoidable contact.
Unavoidable contact. There it is.
Avoidable contact. When you're driving like an idiot. Yes, avoidable contact. You're right. If it's unavoidable, then they can make the change. You're right. Okay, I like that. Now, X30 Pro, great racing. X30 Masters, some issues up top. What about the X30 Junior category? In looking at your reports that you posted on eKarting News as part of our EKN Trackside Live coverage, seems like a dominating weekend for Tyler Gonzalez. It was.
He was basically the driver to beat all weekend long. His teammate from Speed Concepts Racing, Kiffin Simpson, was kind of there throughout the weekend, but didn't quite have the pace to keep up with Gonzalez at the end of the finals. Simpson did out-qualify him on Sunday, along with Nicholas Terlecki, junior rookie, as well as Simpson is. So these two rookies were trying to battle the former Super Nationals winner. And they were more in the battle on Sunday, because Saturday Gonzalez was basically gone every race except for Heat 2 when he got a flat tire. But he bounced back in the final to just walk away for the victory. Simpson ended up second. Kyle Tommy, in his first kart race since, I believe, September when we were in Autobahn. So he's back behind the wheel for the first time in a long time, but was able to run to third. So it was a great return for him to step up onto the podium. As I said on Sunday, Terlecki and Simpson were right there kind of battling Gonzalez in the pre-final. Unfortunately, Terlecki had a bumper penalty on the pre-final, so it dropped them further back in the final grid. Gonzalez and Simpson just kind of walked away from the rest of the field, and they went 1-2 as Terlecki fought his way back up to the third position to land on his first podium of the USBKS program.
Yeah, the Speed Concepts Racing guys looking pretty good. And again, Gonzalez knows that track at Ocala very, very well. And it's not so much, I don't know if it's not so much that it's just the track knowledge, because, the guys at this level can get to a facility like that, practice on Friday and get a good feel for the track. But everything's set up, especially with the speeds, whether it's the speeds or whether it's the OGP team. They're not making a lot of changes to these karts. They're coming in with a baseline that they've set up over thousands of laps, as you said. So really the package they put on the racetrack and the drivers they put in the seats really have things sorted when it comes to Ocala.
Well, there it's about hitting the marks.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so few turns. I believe 8 really.
I think they call it 8.
That excuse me, that you look at, and they're all majority of them are 180s. So it's all about hitting your marks each and every lap to keep your lap times within that 1 or 2 tenth margin.
There it is, some input from David Cole. We have wrapped up the first part of this race report. We've got KA100 Senior, Junior, Mini Swift, and Micro Swift still to come here on the EKN Debrief. We'll be back after these messages.
For over a century, Briggs & Stratton has had a commitment and passion for racing. It's a DNA found in every engine we build today. So whether you kart race, Baja, race quarter midgets, or believe that dirt and snow are just God's way of adding to the challenge, the dedicated spirit of every Briggs & Stratton employee stands at the fence waiting for the green flag to drop. Briggs & Stratton Racing, what powers you?
Since 2003, K1 Race Gear has been a one-stop shop for all your indoor and outdoor karting needs. From racing shoes, suits, and driving gloves to chest protectors, rib vests, accessories, and bags, K1 Race Gear provides quality karting products for the enthusiast and the professional alike. We have an incredible lineup of K1 karting suits designed to fit everyone's budget. Check out our entry-level GK2, the new Apex 2, and our top-of-the-line Speed 1 suit. Then, choose from our Apex and RS1 karting gloves and add in our K1 shoes, rib protectors, and neck collars. If you need a custom suit to support your sponsors, we can create a custom look as unique as you are. As you would expect, our custom suits are made to order. With pricing as low as $495, you're sure to find a suit that not only satisfies your racing needs, but is easy on the wallet as well. We take care of all of our customers at K1 Race Gear, not just the ones with deep pockets. Visit K1RaceGear.com today and get everything you need for your next racing season. Welcome back to the EKN Radio Network. David Cole taking the ball here today. I'm kind of just running maybe fullback right now, David? I don't think I'm doing a whole lot of work. I'm just punching a hole for you to come up through the middle.
No, you're a quarterback. I'm fullback because I'm doing all the work.
Oh, wow. That's what a Chicago Bears fan would say.
Well, we have a great running game.
You do. Again, this is the race report presented by Franklin Motorsports and Merlin USA. David's already gone through the X30 categories for the first round of the USPKS, which was held at Ocala Grand Prix. David, let's jump into KA100 Senior. Just the KA programs, we talked about it off the top of the debrief. A great addition to this program and really has both the senior and junior categories. I think I've kind of fit into a nice gap where in terms of investment, the money it takes to run and the speed as well. I think those categories really have found a gap right there with the Yamaha, but with maybe newer technology.
Yeah. And the good thing about this year in the KA100 Senior was that we saw a lot of new faces because last year it was buy an engine, get the entries for all season. So we had the same drivers at every race. Basically, there were, I think they had 25 maybe average that they had, so it was all the same people. This year, the number wasn't quite as high, but we saw a lot of new faces, not a lot of drivers that returned. So it's good to see the engine program growing. And this weekend we had a new winner in both days with Zach Hollingshead scoring the victory on both days.
How was in terms of scoring the victory? What kind of performance did he put in? Was it dominant? Was he the kind of guy that did he qualify well and lead the whole weekend, or was there a battle up front?
Yeah, he was basically the top driver to beat. That being an OGP driver, again, you have lots of laps on the racetrack. It's all about hitting your marks, as we just talked about earlier. But with the KA100, it was still some close racing, and luckily for him, he was able to get away from some of the racing for second. So a lot of that helped him out pull away. But again, also consistent laps. On Saturday, it was Dylan Gennaro running on the top cart. He was the top challenger on Saturday. Definitely gave him a run for the money early on. But again, as they fought for second, Zach was able to run away, and then Gennaro was left back fighting for the second spot. Morgan Healy racing under the OGP tent for the weekend, taking off the race director hat and putting back on the helmet. She got into the battle with Gennaro. Those two made contact on the final lap. So that put Colton Ramsey on the podium with Josh Hote sliding up to second. So those two raced the KA100 last year, but again with Hollingshead, Healy, Gennaro, all new faces in the front. So it was a great mix of new faces and old faces up front.
Nice. How about Sunday's action?
Sunday, Holtz, I think this was probably Holtz one of his best weekends that we saw at the USPKS. Was able to out-qualify everybody for the pole position. But in the pre-final, Hollingshead and Healy took control. They kind of ran 1-2 in the pre-final. They were both running 1-2 again in the final. Hollingshead was able to just be more consistent with lap times. I talked to Morgan. She said, "Yeah, I saw the halfway mark and I thought I was going to die." So being out of the seat kind of hurt her a little bit, and that allowed Holtz to close back up. So he came in late in the final, was able to steal a second spot away from Morgan. So, but overall, it was great racing in the K100, aside from the contact between Gennaro and Healy. But overall, great racing.
Yeah, sounds like some really good storylines. Good to see Morgan back on the racetrack. And again, the thing I love about an opening round of any series is you kind of get to see the players who are stepping to the forefront. You never know who it's going to be, whether the drivers maybe from last year are able to step up a little more. You said some new names, which will be good. Hopefully we'll see them make the trek to GoPro as well when the series gets ready to go for essentially rounds 3 and 4, event number 2 on the series. How about KA100 Junior? You've talked a lot about this already. 14 drivers in the field for the debut. How did things go in terms of actual racing itself?
Well, for trivia buffs, the first top qualifier ever for the USPKS program in KA100 Junior, Dalton Haynes. So he was able to clip off a fast lap in qualifying, but the day actually belonged to Jacob Graham. Graham just dominated the remainder of the day. They were actually the first class on track after the rain delay. So he kind of was a little timid in the wet conditions in the first opening laps, dropped back to, I believe it was sixth place, but worked his way back up to the win in Heat 2, and then went on to score the victory in the final, uncontested against Erickson Evans and Spencer Lofton.
David Cole giving us the breakdown, the EKN debrief of the opening round of the USPKS here on the EKN Radio Network. David, keep rolling through. We got some Swift classes to talk about as well.
Well, I got to talk about Sunday first, so hold on.
Oh, sorry. Drop it
you're
down.
Not even listening to me, are you? You're just drinking your coffee and.
My water's almost gone. I need another water.
Anyway, so again, Sunday we had a different qualifier with Lofton ending up on the pole position. But Graham bounced back, scoring the pre-final win in the on Sunday. But the two went back and forth throughout the final, and then Lofton ended up coming away with the victory on Sunday over Graham.
Nice to have a couple different winners. Kind of shakes things up going to the next round.
It will, and I think we'll definitely see some more of the local drivers from GoPro come out and probably race with the program. So. That it'll be interesting to see how that category develops again, as we said, throughout the season. Well,
you had mentioned earlier too that the Route 66 will be underway at that point. They're going to have the KA100 junior class as well, as are a number of different clubs. There's definitely going to be a bigger pool to draw from because some guys haven't even got the carts out of the garage yet. It's just up here in the north. People haven't even practiced yet. So I think that once things get going, you can see some new names down there. Exactly. All right. I apologize for jumping the gun. Let's go to Mini Swift. We got about 5 or 6 minutes left here. Let's go.
Yep. Yeah, it was tough competition all weekend long. Alex Powell looked to have a sweep on Saturday, basically dominated the day with qualifying in the 2 heat wins. But it ended up being him along with Fletcher, Jeremy Fletcher, and Christian Miles battling for the lead in the final. And ended up being Miles securing the victory with a last corner pass over Fletcher, which was a shock because Fletcher had the home track advantage. Yeah. So it was a shock to see Miles be able to slip on by. He just saw the real estate and took it, and was able to beat Fletcher to the line for the victory, with Powell ending up third on the podium. Good for him. That's a tough place. It's pretty easy to defend to the inside of that final big sweeping left-hander at Ocala. And as we saw at the SCUSA Winter Series, Jeremy Fletcher can get around that track unbelievably well. He was absolutely impressive when we were down there for the SCUSA event in February. But good to see him back up front. And
but also, you and I both love it. Last lap pass, always fun to call.
It was, and it looked kind of like Fletcher was waiting for the over-under, thinking that Miles is going to just slide on out to the outside as he went inside, and Miles was just able to hang it on or hang on to the inside and beat him to the line. So it was fun to watch, and like you said, Fletcher, watching him pass, not the tree corner they call tree corner, but the other 180 right-hander. yeah. That guy just loves that corner, and he was passing guys there every lap, it seemed.
Wild thing is that the kind of lineup for the race win, the battle on Sundays there's a lot of different players in there.
It kind of got a little bit more heated out there in the mini Swift category on Sunday. Not a lot of guys were playing nice with each other, but but actually Paul Bocuse actually stepped up his game, came out with P1 in qualifying. Wasn't quite able to hang on in the pre-final, so that ended up going to Brent Cruz, with Bukos dropping down to 5th. But again, in the final, it was kind of just crazy shenanigans, as Tim Coyne would say. And Kai Sorensen from California came out, raced with Bennick. He and Bukos just kind of pulled away from the field as the rest of the guys just kind of went back and forth. And these two settled it all the way to the checkered flag with the tightest finish of the weekend, 37 thousandths of a second, with Bocuse getting his first victory over Sorensen.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and again, Fletcher on the podium again in third, so it was another good weekend for him.
Well, you're seeing these same names when we're talking about top level mini Swift racing. It's the guys that we expect to battle all the way through the season. And then again, battle for the win at the Supernats in November. Let's cap off the race report brought to you by Franklin Motorsports and Merlin USA. David, wrap it all up with Micro Swift.
Micro split weekend for Caleb Graffar and Ben Mayer. Mayer was able to beat Graffar both heat races on Saturday, but it ended up being Graffar scoring the victory in the final. Cameron Brinkman on the Merlin rounded out the podium on Saturday. Sunday, all Mayer, sweeping the day. The final was a back and forth between him and Graffar. Mayer ended up able to hold off the last lap charge by Graffar to score the victory. Ethan Ayers with another podium at Ocala, scoring the third place there.
Yeah, a couple of badasses in that Micro Swift category. Both Graffar and Mayer were expecting them to battle all year long. That's it for the race report here on the debrief for the USPKS opening round in Ocala Grand Prix. Let's have a quick look at the EKN Trackside Live race calendar brought to you today by Nitro Kart. April 13th, 14th, 15th, this coming weekend, David and I will head to the Challenge of the Americas, their finale at Sim Raceway Performance Karting Center in Sonoma. Looking forward to some Rock Cup action. A couple weeks after that, Superkarts USA refires the Pro Tour at the Spring Nationals. Move to Phoenix Kart Racing Association in Glendale. Again, that's the first weekend of May. Expecting a great turnout there as the Pro Tour continues to march to Newcastle and the finale, the Summer Nationals. A couple weeks later, David Cole back on track with the WK Manufacturers Cup Series, the EKN Trackside Live coverage there. Eric Brennan on the mic at the Pittsburgh International Race Complex. That's May 18th, 19th, 20th. The same time, I expect to be at the Can-Am Karting Challenge at Tri-Cities Kart Club out in Richland, Washington, one of our double race weekends. And then moving into June, last event that we'll talk about here on the EKN Trackside Live race calendar, I go back to the great state of Texas. A night race for the Texas Pro Kart Challenge. North Texas Karters, we go back to Denton. David, going to be a really good run for us here. In fact, I got it right now. I roll into, I think, about 5 races in 6 weekends. I think that's maybe 6 and, I think it's 6 and 7. It's going to be pretty crazy. I'm going to give you one opportunity, David. We got about 1 minute remaining here in the debrief. How about you wrap up the opening weekend for the
USPKS?
It was
just it was overall great racing. We were able to avoid the heavy rains that came washing in Saturday night. Great to have warm weather. Pushback bumper continues. Obviously had a major impact in the X30 Pro and X30 Masters and other categories as well. Yeah. So we'll continue to watch that. Great return for Scott Speed coming back to karting, racing with his father and brother, scoring a victory. Always great to see Scott back behind the kart. And the KA 100 package, we're going to continue to see that grow and watch it create some tighter fields in the senior and junior categories.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff to continue to follow as the USPKS marches its way as well through to its finale later on this year. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Episode number 21 here on the EKN Radio Network, the EKN Debrief. David Cole giving us a full breakdown of the United States Pro Kart Series opener at Ocala Grand Prix, the Southern Grand Prix. That wraps things up here on the EKN Radio Network. Remember, ekartingnews.com/radio. Get ready. Our new mobile app, almost ready to release. We'll let you know when you can download that. But thank you so much for joining both David and myself here on the EKN Radio Network.